Good afternoon, everyone. This is Kim Schmidt, Executive Editor of Farm Equipment Magazine. Welcome to our latest webinar, Key Customer Engagement Tools in conjunction with CDK Global Heavy Equipment. Today's presenter is Sean Graham, CRM Business Account Executive with CDK and recently started leading the group's eLead CRM initiative. Before Sean gets started, just a couple of housekeeping items. On your screen, there's a control panel with a Q&A icon. You can submit questions here at any time during the presentation, and then time permitting, we'll try to answer as many of those questions as possible. During the presentation, Sean's going to ask you a question and want you to reply using the chat function. That's on that same toolbar. It just has one little bubble and says chat versus the two bubbles in the Q&A. But we'll keep an eye on both in case you hit the wrong one. And then just as always, we are recording today's webinar and we will share that with everyone who registered in the event you want to go and rewatch it later or share it with anyone else at the dealership. With that, we are ready to get started. Thanks again for joining us, and you can take it away, Sean.
All right, thank you so much. And thank everyone for joining and being on the call today. I look forward to sharing some of the knowledge that I've gained, not only from the CRM side of the heavy equipment space, and just as Kim said, I recently started leading our CRM charge here at CDK for heavy equipment, but also my past knowledge when it comes to digital marketing and stuff like that. So again, appreciate everyone being on the call. I think before we really jump into the slides, I think it's important to really talk about, why we're here and why this has become such a big topic recently. So when it comes from us, this really started during the COVID pandemic. And we've been working at CDK, we've been working pretty diligently over the last couple of years to really enhance our customer engagement through our platforms. And we're bringing in tools to do so and new technology. So we really felt compelled that we share this knowledge, we share what we've learned, and we share kind of not only what we've learned, but where we're taking what we've learned and how we're actually incorporating it with our tools and how dealers, whether you're a CDK dealer or not a CDK dealer, you can take this information and use it on your own. So from here, I'm going to jump into the first slide, which is really, how important is customer engagement? And obviously, most of you on this call, I can probably tell you that because you're on this call, you probably, understand more than others that it's super important. So over time, customer engagement has really become a key factor for an organization. And as I sit here today and I preach about customer engagement, how important it is, the real question comes up, and hopefully I answer this throughout the slides here, how important. First of all, every single time your dealership has contact with the customer, that's an opportunity for you guys to make a positive impression for that customer. That is customer engagement. Now, a stat that I pulled is 54% of consumers will buy from a dealer who provides better experiences compared to lower prices. That's pretty important. So that's showing right away that a customer expects good engagement and they expect you to present a positive impression to that customer throughout their experience. So in further slides, we're going to talk about all the different areas that we interact with the customer, how we can use our tools to our advantage to really, bring that customer to a positive experience. But I just want you to keep that stat in the back of your mind that just because you have lower prices or other factors that somebody else might not have, customers are expecting a positive experience and they're expecting good engagement. So a couple other stats that we have here, and I kind of want to drill this in. 98% of brands that rank their customer engagement efforts as excellent or good beat their revenue goals. 48% year-over-year increase of user likelihood to buy from a brand that utilizes cross-channel customer engagement strategies. So that means if you're actually engaging with your customers, you're probably getting better metrics. KPIs, ROIs. So we're going to talk about KPIs, ROIs. We're going to talk about measuring these metrics. But the point being is that if you're trying something now, you're probably getting better metrics than somebody who isn't trying. And obviously you might be thinking, well, that's pretty obvious. But we're going to talk about the different ways, such as texting, virtual reality, emailing, phone calls. So it's not just phone and email anymore. Texting matters. Virtual augmented reality matters. So we're going to talk about all these different areas. But just think about these different ways and think about, is your organization utilizing these different methods today? And if you aren't, why is that? So getting in first to customer interaction. The first thing that I'm going to ask is, what are all the different areas of customer interaction? So I want to start by having each of you just look at these slides and think to yourself, what do all these have in common? You might be thinking this is stuff that we just do on a day-to-day basis, and you aren't wrong when it comes to that. When we have a customer come walking in for service or calls in for service or reaches out to you for service, whether that's email or if you have a different tools that customers use, that's a chance of you making a positive impression. That is a chance for you to engage your customer. That's also an area of customer interaction. Same thing with parts. If a customer walks in, they need a part. Even though customers are busy, customers are walking in, they're like, I just need this part now. Again, that's an area for you to make a positive impression on your customer. So every single one of these areas is all areas of interaction. I'm probably missing some on here too that you might be thinking of. But this is stuff that we're just doing on a day-to-day basis. So how can we use tools to really help boost that engagement? How can we use tools to really help us with that interaction, make that a positive interaction? This is all stuff that we're going to talk about. So when it comes to a customer, and when I started thinking about this, I really started thinking about what is the best way that I can explain customer interaction in this and how it ties to engagement and experiences. And the first thing that came to my mind, which is kind of funny because I hate math, terrible at math. And most people, or a lot of people, don't like math either, but it really is simple math, right? Every interaction we have with the customer is important that the customer leaves or hangs up the phone, whatever that might be, with a positive impression. I keep on saying this. I'm probably going to be a broken record at the end of this because you're going to hate to hear me talking about this, but it's so important that that customer leaves or hangs up with that positive impression. Every experience the customer has with us has to be positive, or at least as positive as possible, right? We know that everyone is not going to be, overwhelmingly positive because we all have those different customers that it's just nothing you can do to really make that customer 100% positive or 100% engaged. But the math is a great customer interaction, or as best as we can get it, mixed with great customer experience. Ultimately, what you're going to get out of that is more customer engagement. No matter how much or how little you do, no matter how you break this down, we have to mix and we have to have good customer interaction and good customer experiences. So again, I will talk about different ways we can do that today, but I probably won't get to all the ways we can do that. There's ways that you can do that outside of technology that you might be thinking of, but it's extremely, extremely important. And I'll run through some of the metrics in further slides. It's going to kind of outline how important this all is. So again, we want to engage more customers. How do we do that, right? There's so many different ways. And I'm talking about technology today, but there's stuff outside of technology. And the answer behind all of this is there isn't a concrete answer. This is really more complex than you think because there is so many ways. I will tell you that one of the best ways of doing this is using technology. So on this slide below, you'll see some different ways we can utilize our tools and technology. And we'll talk more about these as I run through the slides here. Kind of we'll run through each of these. But really, how has technology changed pre-COVID versus post-COVID? Extremely. And again, when it comes to the different areas and different tools that we've introduced to our customers, a lot of this has all stemmed because we as humans have really adapted to being able to use technology to our advantage and not have to have face-to-face conversations. People adapt fast and people are adapting to technology fast. We have to adapt just as quickly. Because if you don't adapt to that, your competition will adapt to that. If I'm a customer, I'm going to go places that I can utilize technology and I can interact as fast as possible because that's what we try to do. So we have multiple technologies to enhance this. And a lot of people aren't using some of these technologies. So when I go through some of these areas, you might be using some of these areas, you might not be using some of these areas, but I would ask that if you just take away one piece of this, is just think about the stuff that you're not doing today. And when I go through the metrics, really try to understand how this can ultimately help your organization. So the first area I'm going to start at, and this kind of is close to my heart because as Kim introduced earlier, I've been running our CRM efforts within CDK Heavy Equipment for about a year now. Prior to that, I worked heavily in the CRM space, heavily in the digital marketing space. So this is always something that I truly think is a huge component to any organization. So when you look at this, the first tool we're going to talk about is a CRM. It's become a critical tool for dealers, businesses, and customers to really keep engaged with one another. When we think of a CRM, we can't think of this as just a sales tool anymore. I would say that's one of the biggest areas that I try to help my customers understand is that this is really a tool or an approach for your entire organization. Because it's just not sales that's dealing with customers. It's everything from your accounting folks, maybe that's during the invoicing process or before that process. It's your parts personnel, your rental personnel, your service personnel. We have opportunities coming from everywhere. Obviously, when everyone thinks of CRM, they think of sales first. Sales is great. We have to make sure sales lives in the CRM, but sales isn't the only person you want in the CRM. So we must also do more than just quote out of the CRM. We have to create efficiencies to help your employees do work. Otherwise, they won't do the work. I think one of the biggest things that I hear when it comes to a CRM is adoption. We've tried CRMs in the past. We haven't been able to get adoption. We haven't been able to get people to really utilize a CRM. And there's really reasons behind that. And there's some valid reasons behind that as well. Integration is a huge, huge component of this. If you don't have an integrated CRM, that creates double work. If we have double work, we're not going to get the adoption. So I'm going to talk about that in some future slides here, but this is all about making it easy for your employees to actually do the work. So again, remember I talked about we're not just quoting out of the CRM. That's being efficiency out of the CRM, but there's also other areas of the CRM. Opportunities, lead management, communication, but also creating those efficiencies so that marketing can actually do their work pre-sale or post-sale, and they have the efficiencies that they can actually target the customers that they need to target. So we're going to talk about all these different areas. I'm going to break through these throughout, but a CRM has become a huge, huge component in the heavy equipment space. And the reason why in my mind, my opinion, the reason why a CRM is falling behind the times when it comes to heavy equipment is because of what I talked about, which is no integration and no ease of use. So I'm going to talk very little about what CDK has brought to the market as far as our integrated CRM, but I think that's one of the main reasons why we have gotten the adoption that we've gotten out of our CRM. So I do have a question before I jump into some further slides here. I do have a question for everybody on the call. I'm going to give probably a minute for everyone to answer this question. And I'm going to ask that everyone uses their chat tool within the webinar, within the Zoom functionality to go ahead and answer this question. And the question is, over the next 3 years, how often would you want to follow up with a customer that purchased a unit that's $100,000 or more from your organization? So if you have a customer that purchases a unit over $100,000 over the next 3 years, how often would you want to follow up with that customer? And don't be shy on this. There really is no wrong answers when it comes to this question. All right, 10 times. I always love this question here because it always, Sheldon, try to go to the Q&A. I think there's chat and then there's Q&A. So if you do Q&A, I believe that'll work. Looks like that's how Alan typed his in. If anybody's having trouble, I believe if you hit Q&A. Okay, cool. There we go. Now I got a bunch flown in. Thank you. Thank you. 5, 3, a couple times a month, 1 or 2 times a month. Minimum of 3 times. I'll give it maybe 30 more seconds now that everyone knows where to type this in. We can 15 times. Twice a year. Thank you for everyone for participating with this. Twice a year. All right. So it's funny when I look at this. I think there's only 2 of you that had similar answers. And when it comes to this, I'm going to go to the answer here. The answer behind this is there is no right answer. You have to be able to pick and choose when you want to engage with each and every customer. Because maybe this is off spend. Maybe it's off a last purchase date, the type of equipment, all the above. There's so many different factors that go into when you want to reach out to that customer. I will say the one thing that I see often is that a lot of our customers have their customers set up as A customers, B customers, C customers. It's so important that we're able to engage with customers any way, shape, or form that you want to engage with customers. Because what you're going to see is that I'm going to go through some slides coming up that are going to talk about communication. If we're not targeting the right person, you're wasting your time. We have to make sure we're targeting the right people. Now, when it comes to customer responses, another function a CRM can help with, when a customer reaches out, it's extremely important that that customer gets a response. But it's just as important, and a golden rule behind this, is that response is fast. An important stat that comes from this is that a company that responds to a customer within the first hour is 7 times more likely to qualify that opportunity than those who respond just an hour later. 7 times more likely to qualify an opportunity if we respond to that customer within the first hour. We're starting to see a lot of OEMs making it mandatory that their dealerships respond to a customer in 3 days, I think some are, 24 hours. Something that is a heavy metric on the automotive space is that some of these OEMs are making this within an hour. If I'm a customer and I'm out looking for a piece of equipment, I might be shopping around to different websites, different dealerships. It's so important that we get with that customer as soon as that customer looks at that unit, because we want to grab that customer as fast as possible. And when I talk about this being a piece of the CRM technology, or how a CRM can help with this, it's because you're not going to be sitting around every minute or every second of every day waiting for a new opportunity to come in. So if we utilize technology, that allows us to respond to that customer as soon as that customer reaches out. That doesn't mean that that salesperson is actively ready to work with that customer and get with that customer right now, but at least we have a response to that customer. We have that customer on the hook. So that way, when we follow up via phone or email that day or the next day, we've already communicated with that customer. Now, furthermore, when it comes to customer responses, remember I talked about it's important to know that customer. It's important to use technology. And just like I said, we're not always sitting around waiting on that opportunity. But when we do have an opportunity come in, we have to be ready. And being ready means that we're having the right tools we need to communicate at our fingertips. And when I say fingertips, I mean on our keyboard or on our mobile device, whatever technology you have to do so. And it doesn't always work, right? What if we're on the phone? What if a customer reaches out to us during the holidays or during the weekend or after hours? This is where technology becomes a key component to communicate with these customers. If we have the right tool set up, it doesn't matter when the customer reaches out to us, that customer will be able to get a response tied to that timing. So if it is during the weekends, maybe that customer gets a response. Hey, Mr. Customer, you reached us after hours or on the weekend. Somebody will get back to you during normal business hours. In the meantime, here's our website if you want to look at equipment, whatever that might be, right? So this is where CRM workflows come into play. And we're going to talk about CRM workflows next. So when it comes to CRM workflows, this is where not only can we use technology, but this is where we can really develop a strategy. So a couple slides ago when I was talking about how important it is to respond to customers fast, how we respond to customers fast, this is just a sample of the different ways that we can set up our CRM, and a lot of CRMs, or some CRMs can do this as well, is looking at what type of opportunity is this? Is the customer calling in? Is the customer inquiring via the website? Is it an on-site visit? Are we visiting the customer at their house or the yard, wherever that might be? Maybe it's by make or model. We realize that different communication frequencies need to go out for customers that are looking for an actual unit versus an attachment, right? We're going to make a lot of money off that unit sale. So we got to actually get with this customer and follow up with this customer once a week. But if a customer is looking for attachment, maybe we just want to follow up with that customer once every couple of weeks or once a month. So previously, when I asked that question, when do we need to follow up with the customer? I hope you're starting to, your wheels are turning as to there's no right answer on this. And every single person on this call might be thinking something different. And that's okay. I talk to customers every single day on what they're looking for at the CRM and what they're doing. Everybody has a different answer. And they need to have a different answer. You guys are all selling different types of equipment. You guys are all working with different customers, different areas of the country. This is all different. I would say one of the number one, and I previously talked about this, but the number one area when it comes to workflows is timing up the opportunity. We never want to make sure that we're missing out on an opportunity. So no matter what, when this opportunity comes in, we always need to be available to respond to that customer. And then some other ways, because again, our CRM is integrated for the dealer. We're able to actually work off of an actual stock number that's in your inventory, or actual lead sources of website or third-party leads, whatever that might be. And again, just to talk a little bit about what we've learned, or what I've learned over the last year when I've really been working with our heavy equipment customers on a CRM, is that integration is probably the biggest key component behind getting adoption in a CRM. A good stat that comes out of the auto world is that the average CRM in the auto space lasts in a dealership anywhere from 24 to 27 months. The reason behind that, well, there's actually two reasons behind that. One of them is training. So understanding the person that you're talking about when it comes to training, which is why we feel it's so important that our trainers are not only have a heavy equipment background, but they have a heavy equipment sales background. When we do on-site training, we want to make sure we understand the pushback that we're going to get from sales personnel before we even get that pushback. But the real adoption, the real reason why we get adoption with our CRM is because of the integration, and because we help salespeople understand that this tool is there for them. This is not a tool that we are having them utilize just because management wants to know what they're doing or what they're working on or watch over them. Nobody's here to do that. Nobody has, or for the most part, right? Nobody has time in their day to sit there and babysit people. This is a good tool to see what's going on, but this is not a babysitting tool. So efficiency is a huge, or integration is a huge efficiency. And the reason why we find adoption, with the integration, we're seeing that it takes about 5 seconds to access a customer versus anywhere from 45 seconds or even more without integration. So this allows us with the integration to know who we're talking to. And within our integration, if a customer calls in, we can actually launch into the CRM profile of that customer or the DMS profile as soon as we match that customer. So a little bit more on this, and I kind of touched upon this. The hardest part of a CRM is getting people to use the CRM. And I can see the heads shaking yes without seeing them. Doesn't matter who I talk to. If you use a CRM before and it's failed, it's just because of the adoption from the employees. So what we've launched at CDK is an integration that integrates the DMS to the CRM and vice versa. So the CRM to the DMS as well. So it doesn't matter where we're interacting with the customer. These two systems completely interact together. So this is a bi-directional integration. This is very new to the heavy equipment space. Again, one of the biggest reasons why we're getting the adoption that we have. So moving through this, remember I talked about so important for communication, right? So important that we respond to customers fast. We're constantly reaching out. We're targeting the right people. And that's all valid. You know, we have to be able to reach out. We have to be able to respond to customers. But it's so important that we don't over communicate to your customers. And you're thinking to yourself, how can I over communicate to my customers, right? Bad communication is still communication. Completely true. There is value behind some communication. But one of the quotes that I found that resonated more than ever, if you broadcast to everyone, you're broadcasting to no one. If you're broadcasting to everyone, you're broadcasting to no one. So true. So being able to personalize your communication as much as possible to the customer, again, when it comes to, maybe you already have this broken out, A customers, B customers, C, D customers. Maybe it's a type of customer, landscapers versus plumbers, construction versus ag. We have to be able to organize all this because we don't want to just send customers communication, because eventually what's going to happen is the same thing that happens with a lot of my customers or a lot of my emails that I get. I just go through and delete them. If we have that personalization, you're far more likely to get that interaction and get that engagement. There's a couple other key components to this. One is allowing the customer to pick and choose how they want to be communicated to. So remember I talked about those cross-channel marketing areas, text message, email, virtual reality we're starting to really see. And I'm going to talk about virtual reality. These are all different ways that each and every customer might want to be communicated differently. And you have to be able to offer that to customers, right? Because remember what I said at the beginning, if you're not going to do this, somebody else will. The last portion when it comes to this is really making sure your customer has the ability to opt out of the communications and making sure you respect those opt-outs. I can't tell you how many times I've received communications, I've opted out, I still receive communications. So not only is that a legality concern, but also just making sure we don't want to ruin our relationship with the customer. So making sure that we respect that customer's opt-out, we set that correctly, and we respect the customer's wishes. I know I see some questions coming in too. I am going to get to questions at the very end of this. So, if you do have other questions you have written down or anything, I will make sure that I get to those. So one of the last areas when we talk about customer engagement, we talk about CRM and marketing. It's so important that we track the ROI. So we've talked about communicating with customers, a little bit about marketing. This is all about making sure that it's working. So it's extremely important that we track our ROI. And this is telling us what's working and what's not working, where we need to spend more time on or less time. So if we do a marketing campaign through our website and we aren't getting engagement or impressions, then we need to look at revamping that campaign. So again, this is why it's so important that we personalize what we're actually sending to our customers, or what we're marketing to a specific group and not just to everyone. So some best practices when it comes to customer engagement in general. If there's anything to take away from what I just talked about when it comes to CRM and marketing, number one, use tools and technology to your advantage. You can't do everything by yourself. Sometimes, although we're good at stuff as humans, technology is better, especially when it comes to responses during the weekends, the holidays, making sure those customers are getting followed up with. But also have someone manage customer engagement. I know a lot of people are wearing different hats within the organization, but at least if we are managing customer engagement, remember the metric that I brought up at the very beginning of this, that if we're trying this, there's a good chance that we have better KPIs, we have better metrics. So a little goes a long way. Make it easy for your team to do the work. Right now, if you are using a tool that's not integrated into your daily workflows, whether that's a CDK tool or not, it doesn't matter to me, you're probably not getting adoption. If you are getting adoption, maybe you're getting very little adoption. If it's not integrated, you're duplicating work. Don't over communicate to customers. Remember, if you're broadcasting to everyone, you're broadcasting to no one. Last but not least, and I've always put, you may be surprised, because when I follow up with customers, that seems to be the common theme, that people are surprised at the ROI behind this. Is surprised that some of the stuff that you may be doing now might not be working. So whether you're surprised for the good or the bad, just track what you're doing, right? Let's track the ROI behind this. So we've talked about CRM, we've talked about marketing, we've gone through how that can help. Remember, I talked about the cross-channel strategies that we have. So two areas I haven't talked about yet is text messaging and the virtual augmented reality. So there's different ways of keeping our customers engaged. I would say from my knowledge, these are the two top ways that have really entered the heavy equipment space. At least as of the last 2 or 3 years. And texting's been around for more than that, obviously, but the virtual augmented reality has really come about very recently. But we have to communicate with customers the way they want. The third time I'm saying this, and it's so true, if you don't adopt some of these technologies, your competition will. If I'm a customer and I want to utilize these different technologies, I'm going to go to who has this. So some metrics behind this, and I hope I don't really have to buy too many people into texting because this has become such a huge component and a key piece of any organization. But some recent metrics that I've found is Americans text 2 times more than they call. 88% of Americans text regularly. 97% text weekly. 83% prefer text over phone. I'm one of those. Even though I'm still on the phone quite a bit. But this one right here is what really, I would say, gets our customers interested the most. Texting is 10 times faster than a phone call. So this is something that's become proven successful in other verticals of CDK in general. CDK is not just heavy equipment. We're automotive, power sports, heavy truck. We have other verticals. So this has become successful. When it comes to the heavy equipment market, fast and furious, it's becoming successful and really becoming a key component for customer interaction and customer engagement. So how does texting help? So again, obviously, this is one of those areas where we can utilize technology, but not only can we utilize technology within this or texting, but it's more than just texting. It's utilizing templates that we can auto send to customers. So very similar to our CRM, where you can send customers different communications automatically. Same thing with texting. We got to have templates that we can easily interact with those customers, but also having integrated inventory. I can just send the customer inventory details directly through text. So what this is all doing, and there's more than that, but what this is all doing is, again, creating efficiencies. We have to continue creating efficiencies because as human beings, we want stuff faster and faster and faster, and it's going to become faster and faster. But this is just another example of keeping specific customers targeted and keeping specific customers engaged. So another metric is 93% better follow-up when a dealership texts with a customer versus phone or email. 93% better follow-up. When it comes to texting, some best practices behind texting. The first one I put on there is being TCPA compliant. Making sure you allow customers to opt in or opt out of communication and making sure we respect their wishes. This is so important. I've heard many lawsuits coming out of the automotive space because we're mass marketing to our customers and not allowing them to opt in or opt out of communication. So you have to be very careful there. But also, just like the CRM and the marketing side, make sure we're measuring our ROIs, make sure we're measuring our metrics behind this, our inbound and outbound metrics, how fast are we replying to customers. But it's also equally as important that you're able to text enable existing landlines so that way we don't have customer confusion. So in the heavy equipment space, a lot of times a lot of our customers are very close to their customers, right? They've been working with a lot of these people for quite some time. Those customers have their actual number saved in their phone. So when we communicate with the customer, we don't want to have that customer confused and think it's a robot texting them. We want to make this as personalized as possible. So being able to text enable those existing landline phone numbers, so that way if that salesperson has a landline phone number, we automatically send that text from that number. Again, I'm a broken record here. Don't over communicate. Don't just blast your customers with text messages. Nobody wants that. Again, I think some of us on this call, including myself, get blasted with text messages every single day. So we don't want to over communicate. We want to keep this as personalized as possible. So moving through this, this brings us to augmented reality. So I brought up earlier augmented reality becoming more and more of a need in not only the world, but the heavy equipment space. So what our dealers are finding that over time, customers have become more susceptible to this technology. And again, if you don't do it, your competition might. You're probably sick of me saying that as well. But what this really does is it helps not only create a better experience for the customer, but a more personalized and immersive experience. So we have actually, at CDK, we have actually embedded this into our customers' workflows, depending on a certain area. Something that I saw this being utilized in is not only service, where customers can start a call with us and show us exactly what they're looking at, but also sales. I had some customers during the pandemic selling equipment all virtually, everything through video. So really, you know, when it comes to how you can use this, it's really limitless, but something that's coming fast and furious into the heavy equipment market. And as you sit here, you might be thinking to yourself, is this really there yet? You know, is virtual reality something that I need to consider? So I pulled some metrics. This isn't necessarily specific to the heavy equipment space, but this is really showing us, you know, don't knock it till you try it, really is what this is showing us. So a 71% of consumers say they would shop more often if they use augmented reality. Again, with that personalized, immersive experience. But look at how much money was generated from consumers that used augmented reality to shop in 2021. $150 million. So this is coming to the space, whether we know it or not, whether we're using it or not. And 48% of consumers say they would pay more for a product if they could customize it in augmented reality. Are we there yet? I don't know. Is somebody doing it? I'm sure somebody is. When it comes to the heavy equipment space, this is what's next, and this is what's already starting to enter the market. So I want to go over some takeaways from all of this before I open it up to questions. The first part of this is I went over quite a bit, and then some people's head might be spinning on some of the stuff I talked about. But what are the best ways of rolling out CRM, texting, augmented reality? The first way is start slow. That's first and foremost. Just go slow with this stuff. Take your time developing your current processes, maybe organizing what's currently going on, how you're interacting with customers, but also how do you want to interact with customers? When I think of this, I really think of this as a tree. The trunk of the tree is a customer service opportunity or sales opportunity, parts opportunity. The rest of the branches are what happens with that opportunity. If a customer calls in or a customer reaches out to us, how do we want to interact with that customer? What sort of communication do we want to send to that customer? And then just as I talked about in the start of this call, when I asked every one of you how often you want to talk to customers, whether it's a current customer or not, you need to be able to develop those frequencies at any one of those metrics that was sent in that chat. This is your organization. You know what works best with your customers. So it's important that we have customization and you develop that within the technology you're using. Be selective on which customers you want to use it with. When it comes to CRM and marketing, obviously that's pretty open, but when it comes to augmented reality, when it comes to texting, maybe not everyone's ready for this, and that's okay. But be selective and track your ROI to see if it's actually working. Lastly, a recap from everything I went over. And these slides will be sent out after, and I encourage anybody, if you need to reach out after, my contact information will be on the next page. But really, what are the key areas to take away from today? Number one is customer interaction and customer experience are tied to customer engagement. Remember, I talked about with the math of a customer. If we provide good experience, if we provide good interaction, that's going to provide more engagement. But use technology to help create better customer experiences. There's so many different tools. I'm not expecting everyone to be using every single one of these tools. That's okay. But just think about the different tools that you can utilize to boost customer engagement and create a better customer experience. Create CRM workflows for faster customer responses. This is so huge, right? Making sure we get the customer on the hook as soon as the customer reaches out, and making sure that we have the tools that create efficiencies within the organization so that once we get that customer on the hook, we can interact with that customer seamlessly. So this is what I talked about when it comes from the customer responses, the workflows, but also the integration between what tools you're using in your business system currently. No matter what you're doing as far as texting, VR, emailing, marketing, CRM, track your ROI. Make sure whatever you're doing it right. You're targeting the right people. So just make sure we're tracking our ROI behind this. If you aren't already today using texting, VR, CRM, marketing efforts, maybe try using some of these cross-channel efforts and track your ROI to see if it's working. So with that, that takes me to any questions. So again, I can't thank all of you enough for being here with me today. I hope everyone was at least able to take a couple things away from this. Again, I hope nobody's overwhelmed. And I hope this isn't the last time you hear from me regarding customer engagement, experience, marketing. So my contact information is below. If anyone wants to reach out and chat more about what I know or what I'm seeing in the heavy equipment space, whether you're a CDK customer or not, I'm happy to chat. So I appreciate everyone being on here.
All right. And we do have a few questions. One, just to clarify, when you were talking about texting and you had the slide up with the 93% better follow-up, is that you get the response to those follow-ups are better from, like, they're received better from the customers, not just
that is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then when it comes to communications that come, inquiries that come in from customers, we know that you're supposed to get back to them as quickly as possible. When those come after hours, what's the best practice there in how quickly it is versus, it's great, I guess, if someone responds in the middle of the night, but maybe we don't want everyone responding in the middle of the night, how quickly the next morning or, depending on what time it is, I guess, should those kind of happen?
Yeah, typically how most of our customers have it set up and what we've seen as a best practice in other verticals is that we set up the workflows so that the customer will get an automated response, instantaneous. So when I say instantaneous, within a couple minutes, basically saying, hey, you've reached us after hours, we'll get back to you as soon as possible. But generally with our workflows and what we set up with our customers is that the next day, whoever is assigned that opportunity, if it goes to a salesperson or maybe it goes to a sales manager, that a follow-up phone call or another follow-up communication be sent within 24 hours.
Okay.
So I would say 24 hours is probably the golden rule behind an actual physical communication, a personalized communication, but getting the customer on the hook with an instantaneous response is almost half the battle. So that's something that I would say as fast as possible.
Okay, that makes sense. And then this next one is more just a suggestion to everyone, but they had said it's probably a good idea to survey customers once a year on what type of communication and the frequency they'd want to get from you. And that way you can take some of the guesswork of integrating it into your CRM. So.
Yeah, 100%. I will just feed off of that as well. You're 100% correct. I will feed off of that and just say that a lot of our CRM users will also send the customer a survey post-sale, not only asking about their experience, but also asking how they want further communication. So this can be very personalizable based on how the individual organization wants that follow-up.
All right. Any other questions from anyone? All right. If not, feel free to reach out to Sean individually, and I'm sure he's happy to answer your questions.
Absolutely. I appreciate everyone being on.
Like I said earlier, we did record the webinar, so we will have that available on the Farm Equipment website for you to go back and review or share with anyone else you think would like to see it. And then on behalf of Sean and the CDK Global Heavy Equipment team, the Farm Equipment staff, thank you for joining us. Feel free to reach out to me if there's any topics you'd like us to cover in the future. And then thanks again and enjoy the rest of your day.